Hey fashion lovers, welcome to my YouTube channel, and I want to say a big thank you to all my new subscribers. I really appreciate the love. In this video, I'm going to be showing how I made this reversible pinafore pepon blouse. If this is your first time on this channel, please like and subscribe. It really helps. These are the material that I'm going to be using. These two African print Ankara fabric. That's what I'm going to be using. So I will start by drafting my basic body pattern, which I have done here. I'm going to be putting you through on how I draft this. So I have here my back and front. So I'm going to be using this pattern for my back and front. And here I use the shoulder measurement. My shoulder is 15 inches divided by 2 is 7.5, and here I have 7.5 inches for my shoulder measurement. This is the guideline where my shoulder measurement is. Then I came down with my slope 1 inches. Then I mark my armhole, then did my armhole curve here. Then this is the neckline. Here I have my back pattern of 1 inches depth, and I also have my front neck depth rather of 3.5 inches. Then the neck width is 3 inches. Then I connect my slope, and here I have my chest line, my bust line, and my waistline. I'm making use of 15.5 for my waistline. Then I need a band of 1.5 inches, so I minus the 1.5 inches of the band from this pattern. I'm having 14 inches in total. So what I have here is 14 inches for my half length. This is 14 inches. So I've minus 1.5 inches for my band out. So I have 14 inches here. So this is it here. So I just draft my basic body pattern, right? So this is how you go about it. I mark my dart line here, and I also take in my dart line here. So I don't need this, but I just draft this in order for you to be familiar with what you know already, which is your basic body pattern. So that is what you should draft first. So the next thing to do, you know that to get our dart leg here, we have to use our tip to tip or nipple to nipple, whichever way you understand it. Your nipple to nipple, your bust point to the other. So you divide it by 2. So my own nipple to nipple is 7.5 inches divided by 2 is 3.75, and which is what I have from here to here. Then I used 1 inch for my dart, so I removed the 1 inch, half an inch on both sides. So this line is what I'm going to be making use of. This line here is what I'm making use of. So I'm going to, on this my shoulder line now, I'm going to come in 1 inch. The reason is that the dress we are making is not going to have sleeve. So that's the reason why I'm going to be coming in 1 inch. So I will measure 1 inch from to this place, then I'll connect it to this line here. So here is it. I've measured it here, and my ruler is also connected to this place. So just place your straight ruler on it like this. So I'm going to use my pencil now and draw it straight to this place. So here is it. I've already drawn it. So from here to here is what I've drawn already. So I'm going to cut it here like this, cut it here, and cut it here. So what I did here was that this is my slope line, right? But I go up half an inch for my shoulder allowance. So I've already added my shoulder allowance now as it is like this. So if I start the cutting from here now, if I start the cutting from here, that means I don't need to add half an inch shoulder allowance again at this guideline. So I've already added my half an inch here. So I'm going to cut this pattern out, then cut it on my fabric, right? Then I'm going to cut the back first. Here is the pattern. So I use it to cut my back first, and at the neck area, this is my neck 1 inches depth line, and I add half an inch for the neck seam allowance. Remember, we've already add half an inch to the shoulder, right? Then half an inch at the side to fold it in, right? Then I do not add any seam allowance again at the down part. So this for my back pattern now, and I use it to cut the two Ankara fabric. So this is one and this is two, and I cut this other side on fold because there's not going to be an opening at the back side. There's not going to be an opening at the back side, so I cut this back one on fold. The two Ankara that I cut it on the two Ankara and I cut it on fold. So I'm going to cut the front one now. So this is the front one. I've cut it on my fabric too, and I cut two of it. I cut it on the other Ankara. So the two Ankara, this is the first one, this is the second one. So the difference between the back and the front is this neck area. So my neck depth, I use 3 inches. I make use of 3 inches neck depth. I did not do the one of 3.5 again. So I use 3 inches neck depth, still maintaining my 3 inches width. Then I add my half an inch seam allowance here. Then there is already half an inch on the pattern at the shoulder line, right? So I add half an inch to at the side. Then at the center, I did not cut it. You can see that there is open. The front, the center one is open. So the front panel is there's going to be an opening at the front panel, and here is it. So I have to cut it and add half an inch seam allowance here to turn it. So this is my half an inch seam allowance. So this is the front panel now. I have cut it. So I'm going to cut my flare now. So to cut my flare, I'm going to be cutting 720 degree flare. That's what I'm going to cut. So to achieve that, I will be cutting 360 in 2 places, right? So to get that, my waist is 30. So that 30 now, I'm going to divide it by 8. So 30 divided by 8, I will be having equals to 3.75. So 3.75 will be what I will have. Then you will not cut exactly the radius, right? You will not cut the radius exactly because you will need some allowance to join the panels together. So I'm going to cut this now by 4 instead of this 3.75. So I'll cut by 4. So my radius is going to be 4 inches. Then the flare, I want the length to be 8 inches. Then that 8 inches plus 1 inch to join it to the upper part and to fold it at the down part. So that means I'll be having 9 inches. So 9 plus 4, I will be having 13 inches. So I'll be cutting 13 inches now for my flare. 13 inches into 2. So that's full circle in 2 places. So that's what I'm going to be cutting now. So to do that now, I'll fold my fabric. So I'll cut it on a pattern first to save material, right? So this is my pattern now. So I'll fold it into 2 like this. I'll fold it into 2 like this now that I fold it. Then I will fold it again. So let's say this is it now. You fold it into 2. This is the folded part. Then you fold it into 2 again like this. So you can see. So here I fold it in 4 places now. So I'm going to measure. Remember, we have 13 inches and the radius we are looking for is 4 inches. So I'm going to measure from here to the end 13 inches. I use it to round it. So I'm going to measure it round like this, 13 inches. Then I'll come back and measure 4 inches again round like this. So I will do that now. So here is it. You can see how this is the 4 fold that I have done earlier. Then as I was explaining, you try to have round here like this the 4 inches that we calculated for the radius, right? That is our waist divided by 8 because we're cutting 2 circles. That's 360 in 2 places to achieve 720. So here I mark it here now. So what I did was I just placed my tape rule in a way that I will have 4 inches like this. So when I found that I have 4 inches, then I measure what I have from here to here, make sure that it's equal here. Then I also use it to, I just place it like this, right? I just place it like this. So here I have 2.5 inches. So I make sure that the 2.5 inches is all round. So if I measure this round line now that is here now, I'll be having 4 inches. So if you measure it like this now, follow the line and measure it, you have 4 inches. So then I go up half an inch. So add your seam allowance here. So this is my seam allowance, right? My seam allowance. So from this place now, and I measure the length that I want. So you can use any choice length that you want, right? So I decided to use 9 inches for the length here. So this is the 9 inches here, right? So I just measure from here to here, 9 inches. Then I add half an inch to hem the down parts. So I just measure it around like that. So you just be placing it like this. You measure, right? So you place it like this, then you measure the 9 inches plus your seam allowance. Then you place it again like this. So you just be following the circle that you've done here to measure it. So don't start from here again, no. So this is where you are starting from. So just place your tape rule from here like this, then measure down 9 inches, which is what I have here. 9 inches, then plus your seam allowance. So this is the complete circle that I want now. So this is 360 degree now. So I'm going to cut it on my fabric, and I'm going to cut 2 of it. Each of the Ankara fabric that I'm using, I'm going to cut 2 each on it. So I'm going to do that now. So secret to how you can cut flare without not wasting your fabric material, right? Without not wasting your material, your whatever material you are using, whether being Ankara or whichever material you are using. What you will do is that you cut on the pattern. So we've already cut it on the pattern. So you fold first. You fold like this, the way I fold here, and I fold it total like this. And you make sure that your fold is not more than the length that you have here. So we have a total of 12 inches here. So here we have a total of 12 inches, right? We have a total of 12 inches here. So this 12 inches is what I'm going to use to fold my fabric now. So I'll first measure the width like this, 12 inches. So what I have here is 12 inches. It's not more than 12 inches here. So you can see that it's 12 inches. Then I also measure this way too. But you will do that after you are folding into 2 first. So this is the into 2 that I fold. So I'll measure another 12 inches like this. So this is my 12 inches too, from this tip to this place, 12 inches. So I'm going to fold it now again, which is into 4, and I'm going to make sure that this is where the fold is going to be. So I'll fold it again like this. So when I finish folding it like this now, so yeah, I have it now in 4 fold now. So I'll fold it again. So and the total of the amount I have here is 12 inches, right? So this is 12 inches now. So what I'm going to do is that I will now place my pattern on it like this. So I'll place my pattern on it like this, so you can see now. So it's starting from this 12 inches too. So I'm going to cut it this way, cut it exactly the pattern. If you do not even draft pattern, you can cut directly on your fabric by folding into 2 first, measuring your radius, right? Measure the radius of your circle plus your length, the flare length. So the total amount you have, for me I have 12 inches. So that total amount, you just fold into 2 first, then you fold into 4 again. So this is the 4. So you pin it down. Please always pin so that you have accurate measurement. So you pin it like this, then you start measuring. So you measure your radius that you have, right? So you start it this way, place it like this to measure it. So when by the time you finish having your radius, here we have the radius of 4 inches for our calculation. So you measure it this way, place it like this. See the way I'm placing my tape rule, so place it like this to measure it. So when you have it that way, then you now measure the way, same way we have our the complete radius. So you measure what you have like this, then you use it to round it like this, and you make sure you measure the line to have your complete radius of 4 inches or whichever amount you have. Then from there you now measure your length, measure from that place to your length, then you measure it, be placing your tape rule like that, like this, and measure it round like this. So that's how to get your flare if you want to cut directly on your fabric, right? But now I've already done that here on my pattern paper, so I'm just going to place my pattern paper on it like this now, then cut it exactly, cut this place too. Remember we came in here half an inch, so I'm going to cut exactly like this, and then refold again and cut again to complete my 720-degree flare. So here is it, guys. I finished cutting it now in both fabric now. So you can see the first one that I cut, and this is the second one too that I've cut. So I've cut them now. So I'm going to go to my ironing table now, the iron stay on them. Also I'm going to also iron stay on this upper part too, right? So I'm going to do that now and come back to show you. So I will just open one side of this circle now. So this is the full circle, right? This is it now. This is the full circle, right? So I'll just open one side like this now. Just open one side. This one too, I'll open one side of it too, right? Then that's where I'm going to be using to join them to complete my 720-degree. So here are my flare. I've already cut one side open, then I've ironed all my stay on all the patterns as I mentioned earlier. So here, this is the second one. So I've iron stay on this one, then I cut one side open, then have a joining in this place to complete it 720-degree, right? So this is it now. So this is the two. I've done the same thing to this other side as well. Then coming to the pinafore, I've also iron stay on both fabric. You can see it here. So what I did here is that I joined it at the shoulder, just place the right side face each other of the front and the back this way, then join it at this shoulder area with the half an inch seam allowance that we added earlier. So this is it. It's very simple, guys. So you can see that I've joined it here, so and I iron it flat, right? So what I will do now is I will open it this way, right? Then I will place this one on top, right side face each other too. So I'll place this one on top like this. All right, so this is it. You can see, so I have to pin it down, and what I've done here is that I'm going to go to my sewing machine. I'm going to sew on this place the neck round with half an inch. Remember we add half an inch seam allowance at the neck area. So I'm going to go to my sewing machine and sew this neck round with half an inch. Then you know the front has opening, and we add half an inch seam allowance too. So I'm going to use that my seam allowance half an inch now to sew it to this place. Note, I'm not going to close this place, right? I'm not closing it. So I'll come to this side, sew this place too with half an inch. I'll sew it like this. I will not close here. Then I also come to this other side, do the same thing to this other side. Then next thing I will do, I will trim this place a little bit, then notch on the neck area. Also on this side too, I'll trim it a little bit, then turn it out, right, and iron it very well. I'm going to do that now. I'll come back to show you. So here is it, guys. I've already ironed it and turned it out. You can see how beautiful. So this is the other side, and this is this other side of the Ankara. So both sides is neatly sewing and well ironed, right? So I'm going to put this aside now and bring out the flare. So here is the flare, right? So what I did is that these are the two flare, so I just place them together. These are the side that I've joined, right, where I joined the 360 together to make it 720. So these are the side I joined. So the side I did not join, I'm going to make a curve here, and I'm going to use about 8.5 inches. So I will measure from here now. So you don't need to really measure this place, you just have to make a curve here like this, right? But for those who will still ask what can they use for the curve, so I'm going to, I think, let me make use of 8.5 inches. So my 8.5 inches is here. So this is 8.5 inches. So I'm going to connect this tip now. I'm going to curve it this way to meet this 8.5. So I'm going to dip my hand a bit like this. So I'm going to curve it now. So I've made the curve here, so I just curve it this way. So it's still the 8.5 inches that I measure, right? So this is 8.5 inches. So starting from here, that's where I curve it to the tip of this place. So I'm going to cut this place off. Then I'm going to mark 1/2 inch. So what I did here, I've already sewed it round, so I just place them right side face each other. After I finish curving this opening side that's going to be at the front, so I just place them right side face each other, then mark my seam allowance that I add on it while I was cutting the flare, right? So I use it to sew it all round, right? So after I finish sewing it, then I notched it. I just notched it. So I'm going to turn this out now, then go and iron it properly. And here is our beautiful flare, well ironed. So I've ironed it to both sides now. It's looking very neat and beautiful. So the next thing to do, I cut a long fabric for my band. Alright, so you can see what I've done here. So I just placed the band on it with the 1/2 inch here. So I'm going to go to my sewing machine and sew it. So I place them right side face each other. This one too, that goes with this one, right side face each other. So this is it here. So I'm going to sew it straight to this other side that does not have the flare on it. So I'm going to sew it here like this. So I will start the sewing from here, sew it like this. I'm going to give a little curve here, so sew it like this, So I'm going to sew it then into the flare. So I'm going to do that now and come back to show you. So here is it, guys. I've sewn it and I've gone ahead to iron it too. So I just iron all the way to the end of this place. So this our cloth is 95% ready. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to place this now on this and top stitch on it all through. So when I finish top stitching on it, I want to iron it, and that will be the end of this video. So I will place them now this way. So this helps me to know that this is the middle part, because that was where I use for the journey, and this is the middle of the pinafore, right? So I've also notched it before, so I will place it this way. I'll place it this way. I'll make sure that the thing is not more than the 1/2 inch that I've already ironed inside. You can see the 1/2 inch. So I will just place it like this now, top stitch on it. That will help me to have it neat, right? So I'll place it this way. So I will pin it down here, right? So I pin it now, and if you turn it to this other side too, it's also well pinned too, neat. So I will just stop stitch on it. So this other one, I will turn it to the right side. So I will just place it this way and place this one to the beginning of the flare. That is the opening on the flare area. So I'll turn it this way now. Alright, so this is it. So I'll start this one from here. I'll start this one here. I'll place it at this beginning here. So that's, I'm going to pin it, and this other one too, I'll also start it here too. I'm going to also pin it here. So here is it. I've already pinned it now, the front one as well. So I'm going to go ahead to my sewing table now and start the sewing from here. So just stop, station it, and make sure that your sewing is very neat, right? So I will do that now and show you the final look.